What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into another episode of the Johnnies Report, a somber Johnnies Report here on this Saturday afternoon as St. John's just found yet again a way to lose a basketball game today. I think that's pretty much been the story throughout this season. It has not been one that many of us were expecting it to be. It has not been a season of dominance that we were expecting this season to be, especially with the transfers that St. John's has brought in. We'll talk about it here. We'll break down what was a really embarrassing game at the Garden. Let's just call it what it is. It was an embarrassing game for St. John's at Madison Square Garden here this afternoon. They were 20 of 71 from the field. St. John's, to put it, I guess, in a way to describe to someone who didn't watch it, gifted the game on multiple occasions back to Providence. There were a plethora of times where St. John's could have taken over the game. They had at one point a 10-point lead around the 14-minute mark in the second half. They saw the lead go from anywhere from 10 all the way down to 5, back up to 10. And again, as Providence struggled making shots, St. John's was right there with them at the worst possible time. And unless really Zuby Ejiofor was going to get to the free throw line, St. John's struggled to find consistent offense. That's the bottom line. There has been no consistency with this offense throughout this season. I've mentioned it multiple times on here. They go through long scoring droughts. Everyone just kind of looks around to see who's going to take control. No one bothers to take control aside from today where you got a performance out of Zuby. But Bryce Hopkins has not been, I think, what we were expecting him as advertised to be. And I think you look at Ian Jackson, you look at Josan Sannon, that's been a similar case as well. Josan Sannon, 1 for 12 from the field. Ian Jackson, who got into foul trouble, only played in 14 minutes, had 6 points, was 1 of 8 from the field. If he wasn't at the free throw line, he wasn't doing much other than that in the 14 minutes, again, that he played. And talking about Bryce Hopkins, who did have 9 points and he had 10 rebounds, but defensively there, the couple last possessions got his ankles broken on what was pretty much the go-ahead bucket and the bucket that sealed it for the Friars. And I don't mean to sound like a coach, but give Providence credit. At the very least, they did not give up. They kept fighting. They kept fighting throughout the entirety of the game. St. John's, on the other hand, when it came to, shall we say, the low points of the game, I've been saying it about this team in this season. If something goes wrong, they tighten up. It just feels like they do not have the mental, I shouldn't say fortitude, but just the toughness mentally to be able to withstand runs from other teams and when something goes wrong. It's been an ongoing theme. It happened against Kentucky. It's happened against Alabama, Iowa State, Auburn, and now today against a Providence team that if you got in this big of a haul that you expected with this much talent, with this much veteran leadership, you should be able to beat this team. At home, at Madison Square Garden, Providence has not looked great. Their entire fan base has been calling for their head coach's head, and you find a way to lose. You find a way to lose. You blow 3-point lead or 3 possession leads throughout this game, throughout the second half. You had a 10-point lead after Leotopoulos hit a 3 with 14-15 to go. Dylan Mitchell on back-to-back fast breaks gets you a 9-point lead, and then Providence cuts it down to 5. Then again, you get it back to a 10-point lead 2 minutes later after Bryce Hopkins goes on a caps off a 5-0 run with an N1 for himself. Then the game went haywire because then Providence got on a roll. And I want to cite here one very specific moment in the second half that for me, in all honesty, made me go, yeah, they're just turning this game right back over to Providence. I want to find the exact spot where it was, but St. John's gets a steal. They had a fast break opportunity, and they missed 3 straight layups. They had 3 shots at it, 3 good looks underneath the basket, and couldn't get it to go. It's just just the mistakes from this team are mind-boggling at times. It's like it's not that they don't have the talent. It's not that they don't have the ability. They just cannot focus on getting the job done is just what it feels like. The mistakes, the lack of detail is just ridiculous. I can't find the exact time marker in the game. It was late in the second half. But it just did not. Here it was. At around the 7.5 point. So they had a 10-point lead here. They get a block by Dylan Darling. Then Joe San goes down, misses a layup. Hopkins misses a tip-in. Hopkins blocked is what they have here on stat broadcast. I thought he just missed it. And then on the other end, Vax is able to make the 3 that brings them to within 7. That was a huge turning point in the game. That, in my opinion, is what honestly led to Providence coming back. It gave them all the momentum. Sure, you got it back to a 9-point lead. You still had opportunities. There was only 6.5 minutes to go at that point. But all of a sudden, Providence, on the other end, can do everything right. And St. John's can do everything wrong on the opposite end. And then they're chucking up 3s. So many missed shots. Again, the lack of just detail to this St. John's team is mind-boggling at this point because we are in early January. It is Big East play. And we're seeing the same problems we saw against Iowa State, Alabama, a couple weeks ago against Kentucky, which was a game that, once again, same thing today, you had a lead. Although, to be honest, it makes more sense to have lost by 6 the way they lost today to Providence. Not that I'm excusing it, but losing to that Kentucky team the way that you lose to Providence today. I can more understand that than losing to a Providence team that was winless coming into today's game, 7-6 on the season. Fans up in arms with the ongoings with the head coach. I don't want to say the writing's on the wall there, but a lot of people not thrilled up in Providence, Rhode Island, and you find a way to lose to them. Again, give Providence all the credit in the world because early on, there was a toughness about Providence. I mean, there was that skirmish there with Zuby Ejiofor. You knew that Providence wanted to get into St. John's head. That's the way that Kim English coaches that team. That's the way they play, and it got them the win today. I'm not trying to say, they did it in a dirty fashion or anything. Don't excuse me there. I'm trying to say they were the more mentally strong team. They were a more mentally strong team today than St. John's. That's the bottom line. Rick Pitino's speech up in Providence last year about where is your mental toughness? He might have to give that speech 10 times over to these guys if he hasn't already. Because I'll tell you what, it's not hitting home. There is something there that is just clearly missing from these guys. Because, again, we're in early January. You're not going to have that many opportunities to erase this loss. Unless Providence goes on a tear through Big East Conference play, which I don't imagine they will, this is going to be a bad loss. This will be a bad loss for St. John's throughout the remainder of the season. I mean, a loss that I did not think you would see from St. John's this year. From what we were being sold in the offseason to what we were being sold in the summer to what I sold you, unfortunately, as well, because this St. John's team at this rate, it's going nowhere. It really isn't. And it's a shame to say that, but let's call it like we see it. Unless St. John's is going to get heroics from Zuby night in and night out to the point of he's getting to the free throw line as often as he was tonight, and he hopefully makes more than 14 out of 23 free throws, where are you getting your offense from? You're not getting consistent shooting from the outside. You have no point guard that can lead the pack up the court. There are so many dumb passes, misplays at the wrong time. The rebounding at times has been wonky. I mean, they did out-rebound Providence today, 51-44. But my God, that cannot happen. That cannot happen. It's really mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. You know, and we know the Hall St. John's got in this offseason. We know they spent money. Obviously, it got them to be the number 5 team in the country preseason. That's crazy to say now. But losing by 6 at home, I mean, they are far, far away from that team that we thought they could be. I don't know how Rick's going to fix it. I don't know at this point how you fix it, because this team shows so many similarities at times to the team he had 2 years ago. The only difference between this year's team and that team 2 years ago is that team felt way more connected at this point in the season. They showed you things against better teams. And also they were underdogs. I mean, let's face it. It was a team of, you had 2 players there that came from the Ivy League. Dennis Jenkins came over from Iona and took a little while to get adjusted to Big East play. You've got guys in Josan Sannon, Endy and Jackson. Granted, Arizona State plays in the Big 12. I almost said Pac-12. Plays in the Big 12. Ian Jackson came from UNC. Bryce Hopkins played at Providence. Now, Bryce Hopkins, I think for a little more of this season, we've given him a lot of grief. And I think today was one of the times where I was holding back on it because, hey, this guy had been injured. Hopefully, he'll improve as the year goes on. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, he has been a turnstile defensively at times. You saw it on that second to last possession. He struggles grabbing rebounds, gives up a plethora of offensive rebounds at times. And then on the flip side, I mean, there was a chance late there where he could have grabbed the offensive board, or I'm sorry, no, I think it was a defensive board, and it went right over his head. There's just something not right there with this team. And again, I don't know if it's at this point how you fix it. I mean, I would have liked to have thought whatever problems they were having, or the problems that they were having, would have been fixed. We would have gotten to see St. John's at some point in time go out there and dominate not dominate, but beat a quality opponent. And then dominate the teams that you should dominate in Big East play. And I'm looking around the country at, the top teams in the country, the top 25 teams. They're dominating their conference play. Virginia beat NC State on the road by 15. You look at Texas Tech taking care of business against Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State was giving them a game early. Texas Tech made the necessary adjustments. They got going. Alabama beat the living crap out of Kentucky, although Kentucky made it a game late. I mean, you're seeing the better teams in the country. They are able to capitalize on mistakes other teams have made. St. John's hasn't. They did so against Georgetown on New Year's Eve. And, I think the last two games we've seen some great heroics by Zuby. In that game, we saw a lot more out of Oziah Sellers. We saw a lot more out of Ian Jackson, who didn't end up getting into foul trouble as early as he did, which is another problem with this team. If you get Ian Jackson in foul trouble, you're not going to get the scoring from Dylan Darling that you'd like, because he is not as confident of a shooter, a plug-and-play guy, as you'd like him to be. Against Georgetown, he gave you good minutes. He closed late. But today against Providence, it wasn't there. 1 point in 20 minutes. 3 personal fouls. He hustles defensively, but listen, there's not enough scoring out there offensively for you to only have 1 point. That can't happen. And I don't know why we're continuing to see this. It's so frustrating. It's not even funny. And again, it takes me back to the mental toughness speech that he gave up at Providence last season. He should have saved it, or he should give it about 10 times over to this team right now. Because, wow, this is glaringly bad. And I don't know what it is about these Providence games. I don't know what it is about Kim English and these Providence teams, but they match up very well against St. John's the last couple seasons. And I know it's Providence. I know Providence more often than not will give you a game, but it's always down to the wire battles against St. John's. Last year, the buzzer beater, the game at the Garden where Providence came back and, Kadari Richmond came up clutch. There were the split in the 23-24 season where you had a great game up in Providence between the two, and St. John's bested them at MSG. But for whatever rhyme or reason, it just does not click with these guys against Providence. Providence matches up very well against St. John's, but that's not an excuse. You got a Providence team that you should dominate. You should not be losing by 6. And it's not as if, listen, this isn't an open and shut case on St. John's getting into the tournament. I mean, let's, again, call it like we see it. This isn't an open and closed case. And this also isn't a team that's like UConn a couple years ago where you lose to Seton Hall. You get upset, granted by in my opinion, from the resume we've seen thus far, a much better Seton Hall team then 2 years ago than this Providence team. This St. John's team clearly is not as good as that UConn team. I don't think I'm saying anything that no one already knows. So you can't afford to lose these games. You just can't. And there aren't, once again, going to be that many opportunities coming up through here. And you can't, I don't know how well that Baylor win is going to stick around for St. John's. I wouldn't envision it to be that glaring of a win anyways, in terms of what the Baylor Bears have really done this season. They have not been, I think, as good as people would have. They are 10-2, but we'll see what happens in Big 12 play. They're up by 6 right now on TCU, and I'm not even going to try and sell you that win right now. But St. John's is in trouble. If they cannot get themselves out of this, they are in trouble, because I don't know what to tell you when you go up against UConn, Villanova, Seton Hall. Next game's at Butler, at Hinkle. Now, Villanova just blew out Butler, but I don't know. With this St. John's team, do I have the confidence that they're going to even, go anywhere and pull out some magnificent win, some big win? No, you shouldn't at this point. Why would you? I look at Creighton, 3-0 in Big East play to start. Who knows what's going to happen when you have to go out and play Creighton? And who knows what's going to happen when you have to go up to Providence and have to take on the Friars in their house, which has been a house of horrors for so many Big East counterparts and yourself as well. Because St. John's, boy oh boy, how you manage to blow multiple triple possession leads is beyond me. It really is. We'll put this out if anyone missed the full stream. We'll put this out as an episode coming up on Monday. We'll have more stuff as we obviously get to the new year. We have more Big East conference play coming up as well. I mentioned the Butler game at Hinkle. That's going to be coming up here on the 6th. So that should be an interesting one on Tuesday night. I don't know if anyone's really excited jumping up and down to watch St. John's coming up Tuesday night at 7 o'clock as you travel out to Hinkle to try and get the bad taste out of your mouth and get this season back on track. But St. John's has a long ways to go before they can really figure this one out. And I mean, I don't have the up-to-minute comments from Coach Pitino. We'll get into that probably a little later on if anything comes out of today, because he could give you a classic in the press conference. So we'll watch out for that, and maybe we'll get something going here where that's concerned, because St. John's needs a fire lit underneath you know what, because this was a pathetic loss today. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.